welcome back. Today I have, I guess not super different style book to talk about, but a style I feel like I haven't talked about in a while, that being a horror book. Today's that we're going to talk about is The Graveyard Apartment. This is one that I had put on my TBR for the month, and it's due back at the library today and unable to be renewed, so I finished it just in time. Which isn't to say that it wasn't interesting, I just prioritized my books badly in the month of January. Because I've known that this due date was coming up for a while, and I just managed my due dates badly. But I did enjoy it, and I have finished it, and I have some thoughts that I want to share. So, The Graveyard Apartment, the general concept is that this young family moves into a new apartment building that is in front of a cemetery, basically. And there's also a crematorium and like a Buddhist temple off in the one side too. And so, you know, they're kind of weirded out first moving into it because it's like it's by a graveyard, but the price was so good. And, you know, they think it's just going to be a normal apartment with this kind of weird feature that there's a graveyard next to it. But oh boy, no, things start to get a little spooky. There's ghosts and this story about the development of the land that it implies some like haunting related things that are going on in the apartment because of it. It's great. I will say that it's a bit of a slow burn so far as the horror goes. There are definitely really good creepy elements once they come, but they're sort of far between. There's a lot of just creepy atmosphere and discomfort after events too, so there'll be like a big event and then things kind of quiet down, but they're unsettled because of said event and things like that. But I think it's worth it to read for those creepy events. Ugh, so many good shivers from this book. Also is a fun just me feature of this book. This book made me want to reread 77 Shadow Street, which is probably my favorite haunted house book / favorite Koontz novel, favorite Dean Koontz novel, but also kind of has a similar premise to this one with a haunted apartment building, except for it's not so much haunting in 77 Shadow Street, but especially towards the end of this one, that was a lot of the vibes that I was getting, was a lot of the same feels that I enjoyed from 77 Shadow Street, so I'll probably be picking that one up again soon too. But yeah, this is a great one just to stand alone on its own too. I think it is a translated work. This particular edition, I don't know if there's more than one, was translated by Deborah Bolivar-Boehm. She did a great job. There were a few minor things with it that I wonder if they were because it was translated, that the commentary was made the way it was. A few things like describing specific like food elements and stuff. Some of the like honorifics were sort of referenced and things like that, and so I would be curious to know and to see if that's in the original book just written out that way or if some of that was added in because it is a translation. I feel like for me personally a lot of that I would have been familiar with anyways because I watch a lot of Asian TV, but obviously the general American population might not be, so I can understand why they might have added it in. But I would just be curious to know, and I don't know how you would find out that kind of thing, especially since this book was first published in 1993, so contacting anyone involved in that process would probably be very difficult. But yeah, just the random things that go on in my head as I read stuff like this. But yeah, if you're looking for anything in that vein, I think it's a fun one. It does evoke for me the little bit of like Asian horror that I've watched too. I did feel like this would make a great movie. It would have sped up a little bit of the pacing, I think, to make it a movie. I think there technically is a movie from last year that just barely got made. I don't know anything more about it than that there's an IMDb page about it. But, you know, I think it would be interesting to see done as a movie, too, because there were a lot of scenes and stuff that I was like, oh, I can just picture this on the big screen and how spooky it would be to watch this thing happen, or how you could snap up the pace, make it a little bit faster if you're cutting through in movie scenes instead of in a book. But yeah, I did overall enjoy it, like I said. It was just, there were a few little moments where it was like a little bit slower than I think would have been most effective, but it was very good. And if my library happens to have more by this author, I'd probably read more of her stuff, especially if she's got other spooky things, because it was a good spook for me. And sometimes it's hard to find good spooks, because I feel like in horror, a lot of the time you end up with those kind of like cyclical stories where it just ends and you're basically back at square one, which this book does a little bit, but it makes sense because it's like an apartment building, so people move in and out of apartments all the time. So that aspect didn't bother me as much as some of the other horror things where you get like a true just, this is just gonna cycle forever kind of story that really bothers me. So yeah, but I thought it felt fairly conclusive for the family that were experiencing the story through, at least, and that's the most important thing for me as far as that goes. So if you're looking for a good horror, might I recommend The Graveyard Apartment. If you have any other horror recommendations you think I might like, particularly if they happen to also be Japanese, because I haven't found many books that are horror. I've definitely seen a lot of Asian horror films, but not so much the books. So if you have book recommendations in particular, I'd love to read some more that are within this same vein. They don't all have to be haunted house by any means, though, just Asian, Japanese horror, but as book. Anyways, if you have any thoughts you want to share, feel free to share down below. I think that's all I've got for now. This is the Umlaut Harper, signing out.